If you find yourself saying to yourself, what a time, what a barbaric time, what a terrible time, well, ask yourself, is it really that way, or are you just seeing that way in the moment, that you're seeing it that way for different reasons? And the stronger the reasons are, the harder it's going to be to shake that type of viewpoint, but you can look at it neutrally. It is within the realm of possibility, even if you feel at a certain moment that it's not possible. Everyone has been there. That is a basic part of the human experience. It's normal, but there is something called the supernormal, and supernormal people can do it. They can drop whatever is aggravating them. And a lot of times it is some type of metaphysical frame. You're way out in the future, you're way out in the past. You're trying to solve things that you're trying to solve impossible problems and are frustrated with the lack of perceived success. And that's the definition of aggravation. It's the difference between a perfect or good enough outcome, imagined outcome, and then the reality on the ground, the difference between that. Now, here's the other thing. People can also put extras on whatever it is they're saying, so they can make things even worse. Have you ever been around people like that, who make things worse? Like, everything was fine. They come in the room, all of a sudden they make everything worse. This isn't right. That isn't right. Do this, do that. So how it just starts screaming. All of a sudden, everything was quiet. Everything was nice. Come into a room, start screaming. That's where you see how subnormalcy can get injected into a situation. Now, on the other hand, some people, they're like, wow, it was boring before. Now we've got some real drama. This screaming isn't screaming, it's drama. And they can take almost a comic entertainment angle on the situation. And it does affect people differently. And some people are better naturals than others. Some people, that just, like, their face goes white and then it goes red and then it goes purple. And other people just are sitting back in the corner laughing on the inside like a clown. It's like bursting. There's like the face puffs up a little bit, even if it's a stone cold expression. It's micro difference. But they're just bawling like a clown inside when these things happen. And there's people that take it really seriously, like deadly seriously. One of the really cool things is to see like a certain group of people from a certain background next to people that just came out of the rainforest, for example. If there's a dispute between two people, the other group, the people from the rainforest, they take these things very seriously. Very seriously, because people get killed out there in the bush and get eaten too. Now, probably not as much as in days gone by, but you best believe it probably does happen. But two different people, two different reactions to social behavior. The one thinks it's okay to run into a room and start screaming at people, and the other group doesn't think that's okay at all. So just think what a vast difference, a vast area exists for misunderstanding between different peoples. Just look at how much territory is there for misunderstanding. No, it really does help when you can speak the language, because they'll ask you, like, why are you doing this? This is freaking me out. This is very upsetting. And then you could say, what? This is normal. And then you can go back and forth and come to some type of understanding and then explain it to the other people that aren't in the know. Like the one person could tell the native, and the native could then tell the other natives, hey guys, let me tell you something crazy. These people from their ships that came in on ships or technological rolling vehicles, they say that when they yell at each other, it's nothing big. It's just how they do things. So don't worry about it. Wouldn't that be helpful? Then yeah, spread that down the line to the other people that are like preparing their machetes and skull bashers, because it's not a war, it's just an argument. It's an animated discussion. So you can see how helpful people, translators, can be. However, what translator really wants to be put in a position to have to be a diplomat to explain behavior, which, although it's in some places normal, isn't really skillful? And yet apparently you had a couple of puffed up people, big on ego, big on self, big on ignorance, big on ill will. They couldn't control themselves, so that's why you need to explain what their unskillfulness in such a way that at least it's understandable. So that's, and just imagine one of these unskillful people then start doing some other unskilled things, like it starts with screaming and then it ends up in perhaps a physical altercation or some sign of disrespect because the guy threw a hatchet at the other guy and it missed the guy he wanted to hit, and it hit the chieftain's daughter like straight in the shoulder. So something like that, it's really hard to explain, and the explanations might not be considered good enough. So being in a group isn't always the best thing, especially when you're in a group of unskillful people or just normal people, normally unskillful, vulgar, common people, tending towards the subnorm. That's not a great group to be in. It really isn't. Especially when you're the guy that has to explain things, when things don't go right, which isn't easy. Sometimes it's a thankless task, because you could have a tongue constructed of golden diamonds, and you still won't be able to explain a certain amount of stupidity away. You just can't do it. Really depends on the counterparty. But let's just take it for granted that they might not be philosophers or poets or noble-minded, noble people. So then you have subnormal actions that are also received in a subnormal fashion. Like this guy, he looked at me funny, so I hit him in the face. that level. Then the guy said, yeah, this guy looked at me funny, so I looked at him funny back. So you got two people knocking on hell's door, knocking on hell's gates, that just, due to random circumstances, bumped into each other on a particular day, in a particular way. And so how much of humanity is a ticking time bomb? How much of it is or has a whole lot of collateral damage that nobody wants to talk about? And yet, what's the point of bemoaning collateral damage when collateral damage is happening all around us all the time in a variety of ways? And it really is how each individual deals with what is put in front of them and what they put behind them. Little stories to tell themselves as far as what being a good person or a blessed person on this planet is all about. So imagine they have religion mixed into it. Are you a good person? No, I'm not a good person. I'm a superior person. Like again, the bottom 5%, just all the different little lies and stories they can tell themselves. I thought I was a bad person, and I pulled this big wad of cash out of my hand, out of my pocket, and slapped myself in the face a couple of times so I could snap out of it. Oh, I'm a great person. I'm better than all these slaves, better than these people. Completely strategically compromised, cockamamie, Ponzi-esque, zombified economies. I don't care. Like, I got a private jet flying in with 100 keys of happy dust on it. So what else is new? Who's playing baseball today? That's your leaders behind the proxies that you have, based on discrepancies between national politics and national financing. So, has this happened before? Certainly has. Why is it so disturbing to a lot of Westerners? Because they didn't think they had this type of system, or let's just say more people benefited from it. You may have had these criminal in the ownership levels. They got their cut of dividends, send it off to places, never to return, but it was just more or less a fraction of the economy because there was meaningful employment in meaningful places with meaningful people. And so the sleight of hand didn't really become all that apparent until it did, in the form of totally destroyed and degraded urban landscapes. Totally ideologically toxic universities and institutions. Something scared them. There was some popular movement. They thought, oh, this is it. Beat our feet out of some type of investigation into the funny money. So they hit the panic button. Let's flood the forum. Where do you got people? Let's bring in the boats. Open the borders. It's a democracy, right? You're my puppet. You're doing it. What's your cover story? This is a humanitarian thing, saving women and children from the desert. You know, a big wind came in off the lakes, threw a lot of dust. These people were gonna die. So we had, military type people from Russia and China organize all these humanitarian boats to go into Section 8 like housing that we get a kickback on because the government signed over $100 million this year to humanitarian causes. So flim-flammery is a big part of it. Public relations, flim-flammery, and a hostile alien and incompetent and unqualified type of tyranny, more or less. Despotism and tyranny, that's it. So, did it happen 1,000 years? It did, yes it did. Why is it so terribly disappointing for Westerners? Because this is a old problem and these are supposedly modern times. How do you address a problem like that? Is there strength in numbers? Because thieves, they don't want to get busted, okay? People that aren't aware that they're being robbed are blissfully unaware. So what would enrage them? Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Sometimes it's some chance event, just some small thing. And then because the security has long since been compromised, it snowballs. And then things just get progressively worse. The situation becomes apparently obvious. That you have people living in guarded compounds, there's no real government to speak of. It all reverts to some form of organized crime, which is a racket. Show up, knock on the door, a time to pay taxes. Hand gets stuck, put the hand out like that, where's pay taxes? Well, look at the street, the electricity ain't working. You got crime everywhere, a busted window. What do I get for the taxes? That's sort of the level. That's the level where things start happening. So you're gonna come and take something from me when I don't have anything left, type thing. But it's a real shame it has to get to that level. It really is. It's not. There's nothing forcing that process to happen other than the sense of impunity of essentially a criminal class that is engaging in alternative reality at the expense of the majority. So yeah, they don't like populists. They consider that to be a populist position. But populists are popular because they address the issues. But addressing the issues is not beneficial for them, they feel, and they're not prepared to walk away. And so there it is. It's sort of a remis at this point. How long will they maintain the facade? But in a lot of other ways, it isn't. It's a distraction for them. This is also part of what the Russians decided to do. Economy's not working. The government's not working. It's just a shakedown operation. Oh yeah, who do we need to punch in the face? Okay, let's pick the Ukrainians, punch them in the face. 300,000 guys sent them into to their deaths. Wait another 10, 20 years, do the same thing, repeat. People say, oh no, they couldn't be that heartless. Well, the people that will flood your country with criminals, essentially, this is where they live. This is their mental space. They don't care about the country. They don't care about public order. They only care about politics in the sense that if they feel threatened enough that they could be kicked out, their proxies could get kicked out, that they would rather to pull the whole thing down upon their heads. But let's not forget, these people have private jets, so just like Hanoi or whatever, Saigon, they'll be climbing up onto a helicopter on the last day with suitcases full of cash or diamonds or whatever else they could pilfer during their ride through this realm. So, in a way, you can't really fault the lowest 5% of attempting such a massive crime. It's somewhat to be expected. It's what's really disappointing is how bamboozled the top 5% has been about this process for so long. It's quite bewildering and quite demoralizing to think about, which is something they like. They think that's the way you should be because it's sort of a precursor of defeat. It's the condition of defeat, is believing that there's nothing but defeat that's possible. But as you know, making the United Kingdom brilliant again, that's going a different direction. That's the ascendant direction, not the descendant. And so it can be a completely different system. Just disengage it. The institutions right now, there needs to be depositions about people that have been placed in institutions, especially cultural ones. If they've done any funny business, they need to get identified, they need to be sentenced, and they need to realize that they weren't on the right side of history after all. They were on the wrong side. The really wrong and misguided and deluded side. So that could happen tomorrow. Some people say, oh no, why? That won't ever happen. Why not? Spread the word. Mukba, right? Make the United Kingdom brilliant again. Within a country, break it up into factions, break it up into personalities, break it up into group interests. Don't think of it as a national effort. It's not. If you're dealing with decapitated political systems, you're dealing with foreign interests. That means the bus service doesn't work anymore. And why? Well, it's better for global interests. They're diametrically opposed to your nation, your culture, your legality, such as in the South China Sea, like we have these rules. They're against that mentality. And they're against the people that have that mentality. And so they brought it back to the UK. So what utterly vile, despicable, and ridiculous forces can they work with in the UK to thwart any type of meaningful strategic initiatives? That's their 24/7, 365. We're talking hundreds of thousands of minions that they've set to the purpose of that. And so now look at the representations of the fruit of their labor as far as labor is concerned. In the name of economic enrichment, completely false pretenses on every level. That they have ingratiated themselves into influential parties' pocketbooks. And the consequences of that are just immense. Talking about profiteers of exterminationism at the last phases, so where you can't even credibly posit a counter argument without immense amount of lies, fabrications, and misrepresentations. This is the bottom of the barrel, people. I want to at least hope that's true. It's like a criminal, right? He busted 100 windows before he was stopped. There's nothing that can bring that back. Even the financial deficit, you repay all the people, that doesn't bring back their time. Cultural decline, there's no recompense for that. There's no adequate punishment. Their money, they say. Digitry. A system that has an accounting function to it. If you think of it on the level of programming, that it is genocidal. Just put it in that category. This is a genocidal trope that they set up, and these are the sweet talkers of that. So the statistical crimes, again, we're starting from the 1960s, we're going back 70 years. All of them get attributed to these thinkers. They're in the philosophy department. We tell people what philosophers are important in this day. You're reading Schopenhauer? No, we have this lunatic instead. We grade people on the basis of their conformity to our ideological totalitarianism. These people you're going to cut a break or deal with. They're just easy to see, and then, what? Their electricity went out all of a sudden. We don't know why. They need to file some type of grievance. But where that will go, nobody knows. But we do know they've been engaged in toxic measures. And the information sphere is a big part of that. So all these people, the cotton candy people, they're part of that. They're the version of the spiked scorpion's tail. Like there's like the fluffy part in front of that. You're on their payroll. You still believe everything they're going to say after 2008? Like, how long is this going to go on? Maybe they are the Malthusian party. Like, maybe their cover story doesn't check out. Like, maybe the whole experiment has failed. Maybe they screwed themselves by screwing over everybody they could get their mitts on. Politicians. So what is the ideal demographic for politicians? Well, what we need to do is take psychology more into account and start screening people. So, rich people or the friends of rich people, I was thinking the other day, why do they go into politics? Like, why? Why would you go into politics? If you have enough money, retire. Do something else. There are arts. There's something called arts. There's the art of archery. You could take up archery and you would not be done with the skill when you die, no matter when you start. You do archery 100 years, you will not come to the end of archery. So, but why do rich people go into politics? Well, these are greedy people. This is what greed is. Greed is, I have 10 things, which is more than enough. I want 10 more things. That's the personality. That's greed. That's a defilement. That's really, 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 really bad as far as causality goes. It creates bad causality. I have 10 things, I want 10 things more, I get 10 things more, I take 10 things more from 10 other people that would otherwise have it. Bad causality. Unforeseen bad causality. What does the greedy person do? they insulate themselves from that part of it. They just see their side of it. So if you're rich and you're in politics, get out. If you want to get rich, don't go into politics, period. If you get rich while you're in politics, something is wrong with you. So that's the new cultural norms, not just for Ukraine and Poland and the Baltic states and Scandinavia and the United States, the UK, and the Commonwealth, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, but every civilized country. So start looking for these people. Who's rich, who does not want to vacate their political position? And how did they get rich? Or who are their rich friends that put them up to it? Because you don't belong in politics. Politics is about solving problems. It's not about self-enrichment. And I say this to a Slavic person, and they start going into this cynical song and dance and laughing and grinning. Look, this might have been possible in days gone by, that you could be a greedy, corrupt type of person, and it's going to slide because you're such a special. But in these days of modern technology, it's really possible to quantify not just how much you steal, but how devastating that is. It is like a little mini nuke. So your effect, if your greed is satiated more, things get worse. That's the causality. Things get worse in unforeseeable. So, of course, people that have nothing then have to come to the person that has something. They like that dynamic. If everybody has something, well, why would they go to the greedy person to ask for something? So, the impoverishment program is something that feeds into their power dynamic. The plantation owner, I guess all the slaves got to ask, sir, can I have a drink of water, sir? It's your water, sir. I know last time I didn't ask, I was beaten to a pulp because I don't own anything, sir. It's all your land, sir. This is your world, sir. Or madame. The madams out there gravitating towards the greedy for greedy people, madams. And that should be pronounced madams, because you don't want to be around them either. Oh, why don't you earn more? What? Well, maybe on this plantation, integrity doesn't pay. So is that not good enough for you? I guess it isn't. So you can madam yourself down the madam street. But yeah, politics, I think we've reached the time. 2023 is the year where we finally say, you don't have the right principles. Most likely. Now, it's possible. I'm going to give it like a 5% exception here, that just because of Seneca, I'm going to make the 5% Seneca exception rule, that 5% of rich people are probably okay. Or perhaps even more than okay. Maybe they're above normal. Like they'll just get the memo, like, I don't have to make my life more complicated by going into politics. Because I'm not a greedy person, I have enough. I'm just going to enjoy all the finer things in life without wrecking it for everyone else. And if it's not them doing that, they have their proxies doing that. So you have to look at proxies and shells that are watching things based on fear. Well, why are they afraid? That's a question that the public should ask. Why are you afraid of losing what you have if you're a good person? Well, the answer might come back, well, I'm not a good person. I'm afraid because of legitimate reasons. Well, these are not legitimate reasons in the eyes of the people. So there will always be a discrepancy there. But the question is, should the people lose or should those types of people win? And the answer to that is absolutely not. Your fear does not justify anything. If anything, it should be a signal to you that you're in a greedy place, that greed has brought you to that state of mind. That's part of the greed matrix. There is craving for more, and there's aversion towards losing what you have. You're in a defilement matrix. They're in a defilement matrix. And it is interesting to look at historical personalities that were just ripped apart by these demons. One of them, Ivan the Terrible, his son killed his own son. See, and it's not just greed for things, it's greed for power. There's people who are greedy for power. So I want to be the person that says that Mondays are yellow hat day. And I want everybody to be wearing a yellow hat. And if nobody's wearing a yellow hat, then we're going to go get those people. Greed for power, not just money. See, money as a means to power, that power dynamic. So, but again, good news is these types of personalities are identifiable. Now, the bad news is that personalities change over time. You can start off with an idealistic, honest, heroic person, and you can end up with a despot instead who's completely crazy over the course of their time based on causality. Sometimes it is out of controlness that's thrown in there. Sometimes it's something that happens that changes someone's personality fundamentally, but not in a good way. They don't come to the right conclusions. They develop pathologies. This person betrayed me, so now everybody, people get paranoid. So as far as political systems go, you need to be able to have a way of cycling people in and cycling them out. On the cycling in part of it, you have to realize you're bringing in fresh water from, let's say, a river. It looks clean. You didn't fill your water bottle from the muddy, sluggish part. You put your bottle out where the water was flowing pretty quickly. And so when you hold up your bottle, the water looks clear. But if you were to take that water under a microscope, you would see it's teeming with microbiology. Some of it pathogenic, some of it can kill you. Oh, I'm just hiking for these three weeks in the mountains, and it's 1 week in, and this water looks clean, and I'm thirsty, and so you drink it, and then you end up getting dysentery. Because little did you know, 500 meters upstream, there's a deer carcass that is laying in the stream because it was also thirsty because it was in a feverish state in the middle of the night because it was on its last leg, so it just wanted to drink a little bit of water, and then it fell unconscious and died. That's what animals many animals do. Just like in old movies, the cowboy that's had one or two arrows too many. Water, just a glass of water. That's what animals have the same type of fate sometimes, meet a similar fate. We're all animals on some level. Water is very important. You fat bodies out there, you need water. You don't need food. You could go months without eating a thing. Now, I would recommend adding some kalium to your table salt, to your water, so that your electrolytes don't get depleted, because that's what the human body needs. But all that meat on your bones, you're a supermarket. You're a walking supermarket for your vital biological requirements. All that fat, that's pure energy. It's just waiting to be burnt up into a chiseled body without any need to go to the gym, just because you can have the discipline not to eat more than your physical requirements demand. But coming back to the example, so 3 weeks in, drink that water, it looks clean. Now, where are you on your journey? There's no hospitals, there's no helicopter coming to pull you out. You might just die based on one bottle of contaminated water. So what does that mean? Well, how do you change that dynamic? Put in 2 iodine pills, and then let it sit for a half hour to an hour, because it has to kill off all of that microbiology. And then before you put it to your mouth, make sure you turn the bottle upside down and let that purified water run through the threads and all over the cap. Reattach it, let that sit for a half hour. Then the water is presumably safe to drink, even if it is cloudy. Some of it doesn't look completely clear. You could then take a t-shirt or something and pour that through the t-shirt into a glass or some type of drinking cup. Then it's even better. It's been filtered a second time. And so you need to think in terms of filtering as well. Filtering people coming in, monitoring people that are in, and kicking people out that make the wrong decisions for themselves and others. And there should be some more testing. Like, let's have what's happening this month? What's happened this month? What do you think about that? And let people talk about it. Oh, I didn't know that happened. What, somebody crossed the border with tanks? What? I was playing video games. What are you talking about? Right? That type of person, fail, bzz, not adequate, not adequately up on the important issues. That person is a fail. That person, people should start talking about that person. What are they doing again? They're playing like ping pong in the middle of the night, butt naked. What is this person? Like, what did we think this person was? This person is a complete idiot. Or this person didn't start off this way, but this person has lost the script. This person's brand stinks, right? Started off good, now stuff falls apart. There's just like plastic parts. But why did that happen? The factory burnt down. It's new management. This is actually produced in a country full of hateful people. They jacked the price. See, that's information. That's the real story. If it is the real story, then that also means you need to have some real actions. It's not like, all right, let's get up on top of a podium and start yelling and screaming and pointing at this person. It's replacing them, starting over. That's it. And to take it out of any other of those contexts, an athlete, you can have a great athlete, you can have a star athlete, just based on age and injuries, they're not the same athlete that they were. When they started, they weren't the same athlete. 5 years in, they weren't the same athlete. 10 years in, that they were. And in 20 years, guess what? Retire. You were a great athlete, something to be proud of. Not everyone is like that. Not everyone achieves those types of things. It's really lucky in a lot of ways that you were able to compete on that level and be so amazing. But the time has come to retire. You don't need to be the one-man team. It's better to pass it off to competent replacements. That's what life is about. The journey of life is about also moving on. I would have been retired at 25 in a perfect world. Okay, let's say 30 max. And yet, life forced me back into working. Now, will it force me to work until I'm 60? Will it force me to work till I'm 80? Will it force me to work till the day I die? These are all, who's forcing who? Who's doing what? One thing I have to say is I'm completely amazed at old people that keep their wits about them. For me, they're just inspirational. Absolutely inspirational. And in our time, these, for example, the old cold warriors, these were people that did know about what was going on in the 80s. They're still there. They didn't get chumped like everybody else did. And they've been very valuable, very insightful, and also very productive up into this very day. So I'm not saying that everyone should retire necessarily, but certainly most people should. And it's certainly anybody, rich people, retire right now, instantaneously. If you're in politics, retire. Think about how you could soonest retire. That is what you should do. If you don't do that, I think that should be known. I think there should be more people. There should be a little bit more transparency about the finances of people in public office and their friends, everybody they know, as well as their business partners. And if anything comes up screwy or fishy or meet the definitions that I laid out before, either greed for more or fear of losing what they have, they're disqualified. You could even categorize them as dangerous elements. Because a normal rich person will do what I said. A normal rich person won't go into politics. These are a special type of pathogen. And they are identifiable. It's easy to identify them. And it should be public knowledge. And it should not be tolerated. And it should also not be underestimated. They don't have the right principles. They don't. Everything about them is wrong. Their first principles are wrong. It's like, we're having a birthday party. Let's invite some nice people. And somebody says, no, we need 5 murderers at the party. Otherwise, it's not a good party. No, actually, no. Anybody's a murderer, they're not invited. All right, that's the causality. You murdered someone, you don't get invited to the birthday party. Now, you pretend that you didn't murder someone and you get invited anyway, and it comes out that you murdered someone. You're gone. Like, so you need to be treated like a special type of murderer. The worst kind, okay? So you're not a rich person at that point. Like, that's not what defines you at the point that you go into politics as a rich person. You become a greedy person at that point, to the point of negatively affecting the lives of potentially billions of people. Because, yeah, everything's fine when money's rolling here, money's rolling there, everything's fine till there's a war, right? Till the nukes get cooked off. So, but it all made sense to you, while everything was working in your favor, and all of that's just malarkey, but until it happens, like it has happened, and then what? You're going to give the money back? Is that going to be enough, do you think? Oh, here's $1 million back. Sorry. No, that's too late. Too late. Too late for the country. So these are not trivial things. This is not small. They think it's small when they're doing it, which gives them the impunity to do it, but it's not. So that's why there needs to be vigorous vetting of people coming in. There needs to be vigorous engagement while they're in. And there also needs to be a mechanism of letting older politicians go gracefully. Because you do have to realize that people like this are almost on a beast-like level, so they don't understand the language of philosophy. So you could have a book that's stacked, same type of thickness as a brick, but nothing in that book will convince them, but a brick will. That's the level of denseness you're dealing with. So, but I understand some people say, oh, this is also idealistic, it's never going to happen, could never happen. Well, when you use your cell phone today, just imagine everybody back 100 years ago said that could never happen. So next time you take your phone out, that's the sign that everything I said, it absolutely can happen, it can work, just as well as that does. Even if you don't think it's possible. Because you're not a scientist. You're not a physicist. Thinks they know everything about life and don't. Most likely. You're going to limit what's possible. Good governance? No. Unfortunately, no. We can send people to the moon, but we can't have good government. What? We don't need people like you. You think like that? Go away. So a lot of people believe in a bunch of nonsense. Oh, this is too hard. I cannot hike 20 kilometers through this mountain range. It's impossible. Well, it is for you. You're not determinate. You're not part of the journey. You get to stay in your world. In your lack of opportunities, and in your lack of vision. But everyone else is going to a new and better place, not a worse one, not a dystopia, not a utopia, but Varangianism. So it's a good idea to make a few observations about modern blobs, modern governmental blobs. So I'm one that like to say they're the regulators regulating the regulations. That's a good one. But also administrators administrating the administration. That's another one. So people making sure, organizing votes, voting the system, know all the rules, entrenched in figuring out how an election should take place and all that, and then they decide to run for office themselves. Like they think that being an administrator, government administrator, makes them cut out for politics. I know this is hard to understand, just complete hubristic imbecility that type of jump into lunacy would require, and yet administrators administering the administration, you can find them. It's going to be, in a way, see, as a scientist, I would really love to just go through 10,000 blobists and figure out where they came from. Like, how many of them are the regulators regulating the regulations? How many are administrators administrating the administration? How many of them are proxies for financial interest? How many are complete lunatics, like based on vanity, like puffed up, gassed up ones, like egotists, yeah. Something like that. Like there was a really, really special mummy's boy that just did everything right the whole time, and he was always praised by his teachers. Then he went through. There are these types of mummy's boys. And then, of course, we have to include the women. Like, what type of women are these? Like, where have they been in their lives? Like, how many wrecked relationships do they have behind them and in front of them? Like, what? Where did they come from again? What does their father say about them? Or is he even in the picture? Or does he look like he's making some type of false statement when you ask him a direct question, like maybe 100 questions, and he answers each one of them in some type of vague way? What does that indicate, do you think? It would be really fascinating. Really, really cool to put them all together, like these malignant personality types, malignant forces at work. And then just turn it into like a legendary piece of literature where people would be reading it and learning about how the world works, the imperfect world, perhaps how to spot them. And how to avoid them. Oh yeah, I see here you want to become supreme leader, or you want to butt your way into political processes. You're not qualified. Get the hell out of here. It's like imagine they come to like a baseball team. Like, all right, here's a mitt. Put this on. I'm gonna throw the ball, and you catch it. Okay, and you throw the ball, it hits them in the face, they pick it up, and then they just run away. Like, I've got the ball. They're not cut out for the team, they're not cut out for the game. They don't have what it takes, but they do think they do. It'd be funny to know how many that would be. See, most people think, no, I'm not cut out for political office. I'm not into intrigues, and I'm not into backstabbing. I'm not into immoral behavior. Well, you need to change that way of thinking. If you're a good person, you should be involved in politics. If you're a bad person, you should not. And good people should identify bad people and have them removed. But of course, the danger here is people redefining what is good. See, and this is where you get bad people trying to do that on an anthropological level. And they've developed weapons like this. It's part of the cultural war. We're going to define what a good man is, and it's a bad man. It's a sniveling, weak, misguided man. That's the good man. That's Soviet Homo Sovieticus, right? So don't let them get off the hook. I think there needs to be more focus put on where all these bad ideas come from and how all this astroturf is maintained. So it's weird. It's not all complicated problems here. These are, oh, here's a bad idea. It came from here. Oh, it's same bad idea across cross-spectrum bad ideas. We can classify that as a pathogen. That's it. And it's not like based on radicalized anthropology. It's based on the well-being of the citizenry. And the well-being consists in things like self-actualization. Something like that. That's what civilizations are set up to do. They're not set up for creating problems. But see, of course, this is the ultimate goal of what they claim. At some point they're going to do this, or they're going to do this for their people, but they don't do it for their people well. Let's get back to the administrators administrating the administration factor that we're dealing with in decrepit democratic countries. So again, try to understand how their lives are constituted, and some of them, many of them have academic credentials, so they're coming out of the academic system. So that right there, if you've ever been in an academic system, you can sort of place them. These are not people that work with their hands. These are not farmers. These are not real world people working at the railroads. They're not, or worked in the railroads. They're not amongst this set of people. This is a university set of people. So think about, like, if you do have some time and some detachment and not a big overinflated, gassed up self that a lot of these people have that keeps them just becoming more and more enamored with themselves as the more and more they win elections or positions of patronage, that they can lord it over the peons that are under them with, although they're probably pretty paranoid because they're looking out for the people that might try to challenge them in some way. So I'm sure it's very toxic types of environments that they create. People that are greedy for political, let's put it straight out there, power, right? Power. That's it's not just money. It's, see, money gets them the power, but actually they're trying to get the power. And the power is lording it over people. If you've ever gotten or have the misfortune of experiencing what it's like to be around a sadist, you know, like, and sadism, these are people you don't know necessarily, but in the moment where they, for example, made a big deal out of something just because they were in a position to do so, to punish you, that type of mentality, it's on lower levels. There's people at the ticket window that can do it. There's people in government administrations. Oh yeah, send me this paper, send me that paper, send me this stamp. This has to be exactly like this. Now, some of them are truly so detached from reality that they think that that's like a valid job, is telling people all of the things they need to do in order to make something that should be a whole lot simpler be done. But because they take themselves so importantly, they make sure you treat them importantly, type thing. It's just social dynamics. That's it. Complete abstraction. It's just a social game. But it's also sadistic in a way, right? Because you're interacting with these people on the basis of their cultural values, which are really so inefficient as to be sadistic, and then they're resistant to changing the system to become more efficient because they've always done it the right way. And the right way is wasting people's time as far as they see it. But they're not wasting other people's time. They're giving other people the opportunity to show them how important they are, type thing as well. So, but that's going into the secretarial dimension of these administrative fiefdoms that have barricaded themselves within government departments and institutions. Not just government. This is now gone into the private sector. They like to make these false dichotomies. Oh, it's the private sector. Well, who owns these companies? Well, it's people. It's all, well, there's a regulatory class that, is involved with the accounting class, that is involved with the financial class, which is involved with. So it's people that know people doing things for them. That's sort of how it works. But if it doesn't work for you, they don't really care because it's really working for them. So that's sort of the mentality that they have, which is really impervious to outside scrutiny, objective analysis, especially if it's unflattering, because these people just, they only know flattering amongst their minions, so why should they be described in such a light that they're obese, blubbery, waxy selves in the true light of a mirror that doesn't lie. So we'd rather have that one curtained. They want the Photoshop version of themselves that they themselves provide for themselves because they're delusional. That's self plus delusion. So distorted self, distorted delusion about a distorted self. Add some greed on top of that, you've got the three main defilements in an above average amount. The neutral way of saying it, they're high on the vulgarity scale or low on the vulgarity scale, right? 0 to 100. What is the most vulgar thing you can imagine? It's probably not even close to as vulgar as some of these people are. So give yourself a pat on the back for being, most likely, just based on averages, you have an average perception of what that looks, what vulgarity looks like. The problem is if you're a noble person, like someone who is not so mondain, right? Then these people are almost invisible to you. It's like it's impossible to even comprehend that people can think in the ways that they do, but they do. And it's really fascinating. That's why you should ask people what they think about certain things in order to get a better reading on their vulgarity. Now, do realize some of them have been trained to lie, trained to put themselves in a good light all the time. And so they're the ones you need to watch out for too. But you don't have to be watching out for those things if you're not engaging in unwise company. And so you can take a lot of pressure off of yourself. Even if you come into contact with people, you don't have to open up to them. You don't have to get to know them. You don't have to, or get to know what you think they are. You don't have to get to know their stories. You don't have to get to know their cons. And it is about A to B to A to B. It doesn't matter at that ticket window how long. It might have been an hour you were standing there too. Maybe you had to sleep in the station, or you had to hike it across the city, or you had to try your luck a couple days later. That's life. There's just, a normal spectrum to be expected in such a place as this world of ours, but don't make it the definitive thing. It's just the thing you get through and then you forget about it. And if you can forgive the offense, because again, what's self got to do with it? And you can forgive the offense, and you're no longer being hindered, then it's, guess what? The defilement is remembering and getting worked up about something. When in fact you can take the supernormal path and just let it go. Another tip for a Russian opposition. Think of it this way, real simple. Would you rather have 2 choices or just 1? How about 3 choices? How about 4? 5? Something like that. You have 5 choices. Look, 5 different people trying to present perhaps a better idea. Now, of course, it can be very annoying if people are just presenting ideas all the time. See, so it's not about presenting all these types of new ideas all the time in every place. It's about starting in intuitive places first. And then just asking yourself the simple question, what is this institution supposed to do? And how do we get something in a modern version of it to work in such a way that it does fulfill its mandate? It's like, this is a car repair shop. It repairs cars, no funny business. It's a service. That's what government can function like. It doesn't take up a large part of your day or your week or your year or your life. Potentially all of the people that did not profit from this system are on your side. But that doesn't mean that you want all of the people that aren't on the side of the current government on your side. There's people that tried to steal from thieves. Those are not the people you want in your opposition. So there is a limit, but just think of the potential. There are potentially 100 million people that think just like you do. And you're right. And then think, on the other hand, how grateful and how happy all of the Ukrainians will be because of such wise decisions. You will finally make them happy by returning to the borders, which were clearly defined before this whole thing happened. So Khrushchev is the one that decided the borders of Ukraine. That's it. End of discussion. There's no discussion. He decided this. We're just returning to sanity, and just think how happy you will make Ukrainians by returning to the borders and standing down, not being violent towards them. You will win. Just think how valuable that is to them. That from a crisis moment you can go over to a win-win situation. Do you know how valuable that is? It's very valuable. Like, if you want respect, that's how you get it. Because it's really real. It's like, look, everything's been decided. Everything has been figured out. And now we're going back to just a status quo as before the war. Like, there wasn't any problems before the war, there doesn't need to be any problems after the war. Of course, people are going to have to get over themselves on both sides. But Europe has experienced unbelievable amount of horrors in recent history and did manage to recover to a certain extent under enlightened leadership. Another quick comment regarding a true Russian opposition. Let's just say that the ruling party that is now not fielding any real candidates, that they have an 80% approval rating. Well, that means that just by being the opposition candidate, you have 30 million really cool people on your side. Like, they really are on your side. It's not a joke. It's not like they don't appreciate what you do. They do. Because you represent something different. Now, this representing something different, here's a big problem with oppositions. Some people are in the opposition because they're bad people. They want to be accepted by good society, and so they don't have any other option. And those are not the people that you necessarily want to represent. So don't take on crazy, hostile values and say, oh, here I am, I'm going to represent, everybody likes good music, I'm going to be the person, I'm going to be for the bad music. These types of just stupid opposition. People that take personal axe grinding issues, people that have weird historical narratives, people from outside that have a vested interest in rewriting narratives and what have you. Just generally also unpatriotic. It's something that sounds ridiculous at this point in time because there's a war going on that is misusing patriotism. So people are like, what, patriotism? Why would you? No, people should have patriotism, but it should be the right type of patriotism. And unfortunately with Russia, we have to go back before 1917, because after 1917, all bets are off. There is no patriotism. And this is really sad in a lot of ways because the current state is captured by a bunch of people that just don't want to believe that that's true. They can't accept it. It's too much. It causes them too much pain to admit it, so they don't admit it. They choose denial instead. They have gone and barricaded themselves in an alternative reality rather than admit that painful truth. They can't admit it to themselves, how many lies they've been told, how many lies define their lives, how many lies define Russian history post 1917. They just can't accept it. It's too much. And in a way, this really is unique in the world. The only other countries that are close to as crazy as this or that is China and North Korea. And people can say, oh, okay, I'm just going to say China and North Korea. And of course, everybody knows what I'm talking about. You can say those two countries and still not know what you're talking about, not even like scratch the surface. Like people, oh, these are bad countries. You have no idea. the school textbook type of nature, the 24/7 TV news cycle, newspapers type of situation that these people have been brought up in. And so when you realize that, how deeply they've been conditioned into these false narratives, it's understandable that they can't break free of them. At least many of them, especially the most invested of them. How about people have committed crimes based on these narratives, like real crimes, like real crimes? They're invested. They can't see it the other way. They're not free spirits. They're not intellectuals. They're not historians. We're talking about people just drenched in blood and guts based on false information. They can't do it. So now somebody with compassion can forgive those people. Obviously, it's something that can happen. It's something that has happened. If somebody drilled me full of all this information, oh, your neighbor is a mass murderer, your neighbor is plotting to kill you, and every day that you have this little devil on your shoulder whispering in your ear, and you don't differentiate yourself from that voice, it's easy to understand how people can believe false narratives and then do bad things based on bad information. It's understandable. So why can't people have compassion? Even for crazy people. Like if you had that situation going on, you can put yourself into their shoes and you can understand, okay, this is crazy. Wouldn't it be better if this person didn't have that? Wouldn't the world be better if they didn't have that condition? If that situation wasn't perpetrated on them. Let's just go, they want alternative reality, offer them a different alternative reality. Just imagine that 1917 never happened. Just imagine that 1905 didn't happen. Right? Let's make a completely new history that doesn't have any of that junk in it. Imagine how civilized Russia would be today. And in economic terms, it would be number one. The richest country on earth, no question about it. And then just think how healthy, happy, relaxed, organized, efficient, civilized. Why not? If we're in alternative reality, why not? Why don't we go there instead, and not back to the past that the 1917 created? All the bad causality that year unleashed, not just in Russia, in the entire world. Why is there a war? Well, because these issues apparently are not solved. They're still in play. These are now social international pathologies that are still in play. Everyone wants to leave the past behind. The past has reinvented itself. It's reestablished itself. The delusional past. But getting back to the opposition, just imagine, even if the main party has 80%, everyone will say, oh yes, of course they have 80%, although that's debatable. 30 million cool people, that is really respectable, even if it's 20%, but I suspect it's probably at least 51%, because if there was a free and fair election, someone who has the optionality to offer solutions that most people find reasonable because they're not personally invested in bad positionings. 50, more or less, you have the 51%. So we're already talking about 71 million, something like that. 71 million people that you represent, even if you lose the election. That is an amazing accomplishment. That really is. And I recommend true opposition, don't bring in old people from the past that have connections with mismanagement, because that's a neutral way of looking at it. They don't come in, and people that hate Russian culture, hate Russian people, hate things like, let's just say, basic patriotism, not like aggressive patriotism, but a certain sense of pride, in the country that should also be based on sort of objectively verifiable facts, like, we have these capabilities, and it's not just propaganda, it's for real. We live well. And that is a source of some satisfaction. That is understandable, not just to people living in the country, but people that come and visit. Wow, everything looks great here. Isn't this wonderful? Everybody's happy. They got a new legal system that works better than every other country, despite it being completely broken and defunct in recent history. What an amazing transformation they've undergone. They're the first country in the world to do it. And that 10 years ago, people could never have imagined it, but the opposition won the election. That wasn't allowed to be in the election, but won it anyway. Because it is about hearts and minds. But not deranged minds and not cantankerous hearts, but true hearts, true minds.